They both came out and Jimin saw Baekhyun. He ran, but unfortunately his foot tripped and he fell. Jimin yelled from the pain. Yungi was about to rush to him, but before that someone held his hand. "Sensei, please help us in fixing tent," a boy said while holding Yungi's hand. Yungi was about to say something when he saw Baekhyun went to Jimin. He sighed and said, "Let's go, I'll help you," Yungi uttered. He went with that kid to help him in fixing tent. "Jimin, are you alright?" Baekhyun asked. "Yes," Jimin said. Got up and looked behind. He saw Yungi helping some kids in fixing their tent. "He can help those kids, but can't help me to get up," Jimin mumbled. "What are you mumbling?" Baekhyun asked. "Nothing. Let's go and fix our tent," Jimin said. "Alright, let's go," Baekhyun said. They both went to fix their tent, but suddenly, "Kids, gather here and listen," Professor Young said. Everyone went to him. "We will decide again who'll live with whom in tent." Professor Young said. "Why again, Sensei?" Chanyeol asked. "Because one of you have to live with Sensei Min." Professor Young said. "I'll live with him," a girl said. "No, we will decide it by chits," Professor Young said. That girl angrily looked at Professor Young but didn't said anything. "Everyone come one by one and take chits," Professor Young said. Everyone one by one took the chits. "Now open it," Professor Young said. Baekhyun opened his chit and saw his number is 1. Which means he is staying with Chanyeol because he also got number 1. Okay, so Chanyeol and Baekhyun are staying together. Professor Young said. "Fuck, I wanted to stay with Jimin," Chanyeol mumbled. Whereas Baekhyun was blushing. Not so. Later, everyone opened their chits. It was now Yungi's turn. He opened his chit and saw he got number 7. 7. Who else have number 7? Professor Young asked. Jimin opened his chit and cursed. "Fucking hell, I'm staying with this fucking sensei," Jimin mumbled. Jimin slowly raised his hand and uttered, "Sensei, it's me," Jimin uttered. "Okay, so Jimin and Sensei Min is staying together," Professor Young said. Unfortunately, Jimin mumbled. Not so. Later they built their tent and went inside because it was already night. Jimin came inside the tent and got amazed by seeing it. "Well, you put those lights?" Jimin asked. "Yes, it's beautiful, right?" Yungi asked. Jimin was about to reply, but he remembered something. He remembered what happened in the morning. He didn't reply. Yungi. "What's wrong?" Yungi asked. Jimin didn't reply. "Hey kid, what's wrong?" Yungi asked again. "Don't talk to me," Jimin spoke. "How? Why? What I did?" Yungi questioned. "You didn't did anything, just don't talk to me," Jimin said. "At least tell me, kid, what I did," Yungi asked. "I said don't talk to me. Talk to that girl you helped in morning," Jimin said. "Oh, so you're angry because of this," Yungi said while chuckling. "You choose to help her, but you didn't help me when I fell," Jimin said. "Because Baekhyun helped you," Yungi said. "I don't want to talk," Jimin said. He took a pillow and laid. Kid, at least listen," Yungi said.
"I don't want a sensei. Let me sleep." "I'm not fine," Jimin said. "Huh? What's wrong? Are you hurt somewhere?" Yungi asked worriedly.
"Who cares? Let me sleep," Jimin said. "Jimin, please tell me," Yungi said. But Jimin didn't reply. This stubborn kid," Yungi said. But Jimin didn't reply. This stubborn kid," Yungi said. He himself laid beside Jimin and closed his eyes. After half hour, Jimin got up because he wasn't able to sleep. I'm not sleepy. What should I do? Jimin said. Let's go to that lake, Jimin spoke. He saw a lake near their camp earlier, so he's talking about going there. He got up, wear his shoes, and left from there. He came to that lake and sat there. It's so peaceful here but too cold, Jimin said. He looked at the starry sky and spoke. Hi, Mom, Dad. How are you guys? Jimin said. You guys know how much I miss you, Jimin questioned. But obviously he won't get any answer. Meanwhile, in tent, Yungi felt thirsty, so he got up and saw Jimin wasn't beside him. Huh, where's Jimin? Yungi spoke. He worriedly got up and went out of the tent. He came to that lake where Jimin was sitting. He was about to say something when he heard Jimin. You know, today when I was coming to school, I saw a boy with their mom and dad. I missed you both, Jimin said. I wanted to live my childhood with you guys. But you left me alone, Mom and Dad. I know. Hobie Hyung never let me feels like I don't have parents, Jimin said. But when I'm alone and I'm not busy, then I can't help to think about you guys. I really miss you. Please come back. Your little Minnie is tired, Jimin said.
His eyes were teary as well as Yoongi's eyes were teary listening to this. Suddenly Jimin looked in the lake and noticed someone's shadow beside him.
He got scared and yelled. Unfortunately, his foot slipped and he fell in the lake. Save me, Jimin yelled while drowning. He don't know how to swim. Before thinking twice, Yungi jumped inside the lake. Jimin, Yungi said to help Jimin, who was shouting. See, can't breath, Jimin said. Suddenly he fainted in Yungi's arms. Jimin, hey kid, Yungi said while patting his cheek. He got out of the lake and rushed to their tent. He came inside the tent and zipped it. He made Jimin lay and starts to wipe his face with towel. I hope he's all right, Yungi said. After some time, Jimin gained back his consciousness. Where am I? Jimin asked. Are you all right, kid? You fell in the lake, Yungi said. Jimin remembered everything and said, someone was beside me. I got scared, Jimin said. That was me. I got worried when I couldn't find you here, Yungi said. I wasn't sleepy, so I went out, sensei, Jimin said. Now go and change your clothes. They're all wet, Yungi said. But I don't have any extra clothes, Jimin said while pouting. He is so cute. Oh my, I want to taste his lips, Yungi thought. He starts to go close to Jimin. Sensei, what's W wrong? Jimin asked. Yungi didn't reply and hovered him. Sensei, Jimin shuddered while saying shhh. Don't speak, Yungi said in his deep voice. Someone will see us, Jimin said. No one will, Yungi said. He was moved his face closer to Jimin, who closed his eyes. It's true that he also loves Yungi, so he won't stop him. Yungi was about to place his lips on Jimin one's butt. No. I can't do this. He is just my student, Yungi thought. He moved his face. Jimin opened his eyes and saw Yungi. Looking in Jimin's eyes, Yungi couldn't control himself. He held Jimin's arms and kissed him.
Jimin also closed his eyes, feeling Yoongi's lips, but then, no, I can't do this. He is just my student, Yoongi's intrusive thoughts spoke.
He broke the kiss and said, Jimin, I'm sorry. It was just a mistake, Yungi said. Mistake? Jimin asked. I couldn't balance myself. I'm sorry, Yungi said. Jimin got up and pushed Yungi. so kissing me was just a mistake. Jimin asked. He don't know why, but he was hurt by Yumi's words. Yes. I'm sorry, Yungi said.
Jimin didn't sit anything and laid on his place after taking blanket. Jimin, at least change your clothes, Yungi said.
He was a bit awkward now. Jimin didn't reply.
Kid, please change your clothes or else you'll catch cold, Yungi said. I told you, I don't have any clothes, Jimin spoke coldly.
Take mine, I've extra, Yungi said. He gave his extra clothes to Jimin. Where should I change? Jimin asked coldly. I'll keep my face this side. You can change, Yungi said. Jimin hummed and Yungi turned. He changed his clothes and said, I'm done, Jimin spoke coldly. Yungi turned back and saw Jimin was looking so cute in his oversized clothes. He chuckled but narrowed his eyebrow. When he saw Jimin's teary eyes, What's wrong, Jimin? Yungi asked. Nothing, Jimin replied. He laid on his place and covered himself with duvet. To be continued.